Well, here it is. This is my little short animation I did for last month. Basically, what it is that I decided to do a little simple animation of a butterfly flying to a flower. It looks pretty stiff and it could have been a little bit better, but I I was on a time crunch. And I planned on so much more stuff on it, but I had to cut it out to meet with Dead of March's deadline. But making this little animation had me realize that maybe I can't do an animation for what I envision. So I'm gonna go ahead and break down so far what I learned from doing this animation. Now, the first thing we have to talk about was the cost, because that little animation that's less than a second, that was not cheap to make. So here was all the stuff I did buy for what I did originally plan for the animation. First off, we have all the draft paper that I used to sketch and then illustrate later. It originally the animation pilot was supposed to be 500 frames, but since I couldn't do all the scenes in time because I had work and some other factors, I had to stick with a short around 50 frames per second. Or not 50 frames per second, but 50 frames in total. So the whole stack of paper, I believe it costed me around $10 to $20. I don't exactly remember, but hey, paper ain't cheap nowadays. Second thing was that translucent paper I use. If you don't know what it's called cells. It's what animators use to help create the animation and allow those cells to have a background as well. It's what you see with those old hand drawn animations. And that translucent paper was not cheap. I spent over $200 on. I don't remember exactly how many cells it was. I believe it was 100 of the sheets. But you only saw around 50 cells total in animation, so you're probably wondering how the heck did it cost over 200? And also, I didn't use all the paper. To save money, I had to cut up the paper into four separate squares. Yeah, the paper was large. And so I only put them over the parts where the animation would be, a way to save money. However, by doing so, it did kind of sacrifice some of the background. Because I am one of those perfectionists, and I didn't like seeing a blurry black background. But hey, what can I say? Now, next we got the markers. Let me tell you one thing. I didn't use no standard Crayola markers. No, I used expensive kind. I believe costing me over $50. So yeah, being in the art industry, you gotta use more than just standard colors. Because there's like so many things that they talk about, like color theory, frames per second, contrast between light and darkness, etc. So that's why I got a specific marker bundle that'll allow me to distinguish the colors better. Then next to liner, if you notice with some animations, you'll see a black line on most of the characters. That black line is basically the boundaries for the characters, allowing you to put color in there later on after drawing your rough sketch. That's what I did. It's supposed to be uh it's supposed to be blue wings, but because because I didn't use the right brightness, it basically you can barely see the color difference between the body and the wings. So guess that was on me. Also for the light tablet, for some reason it showed a different color of purple than what I originally have. Who who knows? It was probably the light table. But anyway, with all that added up together, that's like over $300 just to make about like less than 200 frames. So yeah, that was another reason why I had to cut what I fully envision, because I wasn't able to create the full thing at the time with what I had, especially with the translucent paper, because that stuff was expensive. So after making that, I had to think through what I wanted to do next, because obviously I couldn't do hand drawn animation because it was gonna be too expensive, and the part time job I basically have doesn't pay enough. So I have to look into alternatives, not in employment, but in animation. Now, the first thing I tried doing was finding an animation software, and y'all might think, why not just download that? Well, here's the problem with things nowadays. You need a subscription to do everything. Like, you want to play online with your friends, you need a subscription for that. That started happening around the mid 2010s. So you have that. You want to watch a movie? Oh, you need Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, all that stuff. So that's another one out. And then you have certain computer softwares like Microsoft Word. Now that one is pretty mixed because it depends on which version you use. If you're using the online version, that one's free, but it doesn't have as many features as the app version. But the app version costs money. So yeah, that's another problem. I run something that's similar to one of those. It's free to use, but having a subscription gives you more features. Because the place I make my music, it is one of those kinds of subscription places. You don't need to pay for a subscription; it's free, but you get basically the bare minimum of what you need to make it. Not saying it's bad, but it pretty much locks you out of most stuff. So yeah, I can't really find an animation software that's free. You may think Adobe Animated is one, but that one you need to pay for. I believe this is. I don't exactly remember how much that subscription costs. I will tell you one thing: it will cost more than $100 yearly to use. So yeah, if you use it every day, then you'll get a lot of value out of it. But that's the thing: I don't want to pay for something that I'm gonna barely use. So that's basically out the window. So can't really hand draw because it's too expensive. You can't really find a subscription or not subscription. You can't really find an online software because you need a subscription for that. So, seems like I gotta look into other types of ideas to make my creation to life. So while brainstorming, a few ideas did come into mind. One of them being comic books. Because one of my original ideas was that I would have free arcs that would be animated. And then after the animations were done, I would move on to comics and other sorts of media. But since animation is going to be too expensive, then maybe I'm looking into comics. There are various places where you can make your comic books, but they have a lot of rules and regulations. So that's one. The next one being is game making. I could possibly make a video game. But making a video game now, problem though is that I barely even know how to make a game. I mean, yeah, I know how to use Scratch, but they have a lot of rules and regulations. And the story I made for my creation is basically gonna be around rated M and rated R content. So yeah, if I want it to be like on Scratch, I'm gonna have to water it down a lot, which I don't want to have to do. So another another one that I was thinking about is making a card or board game, and and something I used to do a lot when I was younger is make board games, but most of them didn't even last. So yeah, that's my three options: make a video game, make a board game, or make a comic. I'll see how it turns out, but I'm leaning more towards the video game part. And there are several types of video game ideas that I could have for it. Yeah, so when deciding on making a video game, there were three things that came into mind. First one being adventure games, because adventure games are my favorite genre of gaming. But once again, since I don't know how to code, it's gonna take a while. So the second option was making an RPG game, basically something similar to like Final Fantasy, I guess. But uh, honestly, RPG games aren't really my favorites because the worst thing about RPG games is you gotta be constantly XP farming whenever you get to a new area. That was basically a reason why I stopped streaming Bravely Default by the time around this, because it was taking way too long to XP farm, and I just didn't have enough time for that. So there was one more that came to mind. One of those storyline games, the ones where you basically choose your own ending through clicking buttons. I I forgot what type of genre that's called, but what, probably an example of what I'm talking about would be Doki Doki Literature Club. Those ones are games. So yeah, those are my three ideas. Now, for when making a book, the problem with books nowadays is that the literacy rate has been dropping drastically. So, with not many people wanting to read nowadays, I don't think I should make a book. I mean, yeah, there's ebooks. People purchase ebooks on their iPads and Nooks. If you don't know what a Nook is, it's basically a tablet for Barnes and Nobles. Basically, one of those tablets where you can read books online and also play games. I had one when I was younger, but no, you get the point. So there was that, and also the thing about comic books is that even if I do manage to make it, you gotta find somewhere to publish it. You can't just publish a book anywhere. So you may think, oh, why not just go to webcomic? Well, webcomics has a huge rule about what type of comics they allow. And once again, the original vision I have for my story is going to require a lot of watering down, which once again I don't want to do. So yeah, that's basically where we're at. We're at a stalemate with all three of those options. I know I didn't talk about board game a lot, but eh, I'll I'll have trouble making it because the way I want it to be made is gonna require so many rules. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and depart. This is StarMaster 42. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see y'all in the next video.